Love that performance. Thank you so much. I'm honored to be joined here in studio by Jennifer Tank, Professor of Biological Sciences at the University of Notre Dame College of Science. Jennifer, welcome here to Notre Dame Day. We were chatting during that performance a little bit. I think I could sit here and chat with you all day.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. I understand that you're the interim director of the Notre Dame Environmental Change Initiative here at the university. Explain what that initiative is all about.
Yeah, the Environmental Change Initiative, we call it the ECI, is a group of about 40 faculty at the university that are focused around some of the great environmental challenges of our day. Invasive species, climate change, land use change, and how those huge pressures are influencing the environment. And so we're working across colleges, College of Science, Arts and Letters, Engineering, and Architecture to sort of solve some of those grand challenges.
You know, one thing I was really interested about here is that I understand that you're researching agricultural conservation practices that would prevent what's called the dead zone in the Gulf of Mexico. Can you explain what the dead zone is and how we go about trying to fix it?
Yeah, so the dead zone occurs every year around June in the Gulf of Mexico, and it basically is an area of water that there's no oxygen. The fish and the shellfish in that water die. And it's actually coming from agricultural runoff of fertilizers way up here in the Corn Belt. And so what we're trying to do is work to find practices that work for farmers that keeps the fertilizer that they buy on the land instead of letting it run off during, say, storm or snow melt into the waterways and head to the Gulf of Mexico. So that's kind of our goal.
Yeah, that sounds like a very large issue. It could be.
It's a big issue.
And how do you characterize an invasive species? You touched on that a bit. We've all seen the internet videos of fish that are jumping into people's boats. Is that the kind of thing that we're talking about?
Yeah, those are amazing videos.
Yeah.
I mean, they kind of get addictive. You can go from one to one on YouTube. But those are Asian carps that are jumping as boats move through the water, and they think they jump because of the disturbance of the boat motor. There are a lot of different invasive species. Those are kind of the poster child for dramatic invasive species because they're actually a hazard to boaters, as well as sort of the environmental impacts that they have. But there are also invasive plants, things that you can see and can't see. And the idea at the ECI is to prevent invasive species from becoming established, prevent them from getting into these systems and really changing the way these ecosystems work.
And that's a problem close to home as well for us here when it comes to the Great Lakes.
Yeah,
Can you talk about
it is.
that?
Yeah, well, with the Asian carp, they're sort of moving up the Illinois River closer and closer. Some people say they may have already gotten into the Great Lakes. We're working at the ECI to develop early detection techniques that allows us to find out if before something hits that maybe there's 1 or 2 or 10 instead of only knowing they've gotten there when you see these huge environmental impacts. So it's kind of like detective work, only it's environmental detective work.
Right. And they get so large as well. I was over at the aquarium in Chicago recently, and they have them there in the exhibit, and all the kids are looking at them. They're huge.
Put them nose to nose with an Asian carp. Yeah, no, it's really good.
And staying on that topic, can you just explain where do they become? Where do they come from in the first place?
Well, invasions are usually inadvertent introductions. Asian carps were for the aquaculture trade down south for catfish farms. They were cleaning up algae as they go along the bottom and clean algae, and they got out accidentally into the rivers and streams. Other invasions can happen through ballast water from ships that they empty their ballast water into a marina or a harbor and accidentally introduce something new. It can happen when people dump out their aquaria. I mean, how many people have emptied their aquarium? The fish all die and they decide, oh, we're going to dump all these plants down the toilet.
Right.
Well, that's never a good choice because something that's not native can become established through those inadvertent introductions.
Well, that comes to my last question: is what can we do to make sure that we're not having a harmful effect on the environment?
Yeah. Well, I mean, ECI, we're trying through the research that we do is to provide tools for managers that can help prevent these types of introductions early on. But even, in your day-to-day life, just being responsible about, when you move, say, your kayak or your canoe or your boat from one lake to another, wash off the boat motor, get all those aquatic plants off the propellers or your canoe. If you're going, if you're fishing and you've got your waders on, make sure to wash your waders in between rivers. And never dump your pets down the toilet. So those are just some of the things that just every day you can do to prevent invasions. Yeah.
Jennifer, a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us here for ND Day.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was exciting.
Excellent.